Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Building a Strong Foundation for Healthy Families Summit, and I'm your host, Andrea Biliati. And today's guests are Scott and Nancy Keisling, and they're going to talk about building your confidence and your self-esteem and how it can really affect your home life and being a better parent. And a little brief intro, Scott and Nancy are adventure dating and relationship consultants who use their unique method of adventure therapy to help people learn how to love themselves first, to to be adventuresome and overcome their fears so that they can live their best life. So I love that, and there's so much more to them. So I am going to give it to both of you guys to give us a little background on how you got started.
Sure. So, like you, it kind of was a passion that was, within us to help people and kind of share what we had learned on our journey. And we were working at it and then kind of got thrown into it a little bit more with, which is another story that we'll get into. But for me, self-confidence, self-worth, it was something that I was always taught, thankfully, from my parents. But as I got older, I started to notice that not everybody was taught that. And when I would speak about certain things, I noticed that people would kind of, look at me a little funny, like they didn't hear it that way. They never had heard the things that I was taught. So I kind of was always that person to give advice and share, things that I had learned throughout my life. And that led me to wanting to help people. And I got into psychology and, went to school for some of that. And then that kind of led down the road of going into coaching. And when I met Scott, we kind of just went full tilt with it because his background was really big at the time with helping people. He'd already helped tons of people by the time I had met him. So we joined forces and we brought a male-female perspective together. And it's something unique, I think, that really gives people a dual perspective on things.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. For me, I had failed relationship after failed relationship. And a lot of it was due to my drive at work, which was due to my covering up of trauma and unhealed childhood stuff, right?
I relate to that. Uh-huh.
And, throughout my journey and my relationships, I had a beautiful son and really began my journey of co-parenting and understanding that it's not about me or my ego or what's best for me. It's what's best for our child, and developing a system that really worked for not only co-parenting with my ex-wife, my son's mother, but being able to co-parent within our relationships, because we remarried, she remarried. It's life moves forward, right? And
right.
The journey that I was able to be on of self-discovery led me to the confidence that I have today and the self-esteem that I have today. And I really use adventure to bring that out. To really build that self-esteem and that confidence.
Exactly. Why do you guys think, I know self-esteem is a big, why do you think that's so important and really can help? It's kind of a two-part question. It can help your home life itself as far as and also as making you a quote better parent.
Yeah, the self-esteem part is probably one of the most important pieces, not only in life, but in parenting.
Right.
And what it helps to solve are really the limiting beliefs behind parenting or behind living our best life, right? If we don't have the self-esteem or the confidence to have an adventurous mindset, to go after this thing that nobody's ever taught us, right? There are books on parenting, but nobody teaches you how to parent. Okay. So
Exactly.
do we listen to everybody else and our own limiting beliefs, or do we adopt that adventurous mindset, follow our heart space, and be confident in the decisions that we're making that are best for our child? And are we really doing that, right? There's an awareness piece to this that folks really need to understand. You have to be aware of, are you making the choice or the decision for your child, for your family unit, or are you making it for yourself, or are you making it for somebody else out of lack of self-esteem and confidence? And that awareness brings us to what we call a choice moment, and we get to see it with clarity. We get to see where we're making that choice from and what is the outcome going to be. If I make choices for other people that involve my family unit, the outcome is not going to be what we want. It's going to be what somebody else expects.
Well, and I love that point, because if we don't have self-worth and self-esteem, then we're going to make choices from that place of not having self-worth and self-esteem. So when our children come to us with certain circumstances, certain things that happen to them, we're going to act out of the place of our own self-worth, which then reflects onto them taking that on as what they will build as their self-worth. So the higher that we raise our own,
the better model we make.
The better model that we make for our kids to be able to stand up for themselves, speak up for themselves, set boundaries, and know that it's healthy to do that. When we lack self-worth, we feel not confident to set boundaries. We feel that we can't speak up about certain things. So then we end up in an unhealthy space of letting people treat us a certain way, or, walk all over us.
Or worse, you end up in the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like you would say, like, that's something about, they say, like, nobody's a better teacher for our kids than us. So it's like a role model. It's how we portray. So something, if we have that low confidence, that low self-esteem, which I did there, is going to portray on how we're communicating with our child.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then it's going to, when we look at generational negativity, when we look at generational trauma, when we look at the generations behind us, we can see with awareness what didn't work or what could have been done better, and not from a judgmental place, but from what was modeled to me. I didn't know how to have a relationship in a healthy way because it wasn't modeled to me. It wasn't modeled to my parents. It wasn't modeled to my grandparents. It wasn't modeled to my great-grandparents. So what I've done is break that cycle of negativity. I've broken the generational cycle to allow my son the opportunity to have healthy relationships through self-confidence, self-esteem, learning all of the pieces about a family unit that I didn't get to learn. Now, that doesn't mean I did a perfect job. I have no idea.
None of us are perfect. It doesn't matter how much we work on ourselves and how much we're still never going to be perfect.
Right.
But
well said.
I did the best that I could with the knowledge that I gained. This is very different than what most people will tell you, right? Most people say, oh, they did the best they could with the knowledge they had.
Right.
I did the best I could with the knowledge I gained. And what I mean by that is I went out searching for solutions so that, because I didn't know.
Because the knowledge you had.
I knew that I didn't want to treat my son the way that I was treated. That's what I knew as a core. I didn't know how to, right? I didn't know the how to. So I went out and I learned it. So then I did the best that I could with the knowledge I've gained, which is very different than what most people will tell you to do. So I went out there and I found great parental relationships. I met great men who became father figures and mentors to me because there was so much I didn't know. So being able to now give that back to people, show people that it is possible to break that cycle of negativity is one of the most beautiful things that I've gotten to do with my life.
That's gorgeous. That is beautiful. How would you say like one like start? If there's somebody knows like they have a low confidence in themselves, or a parent, or so, or anyway, they have this low self-esteem, and they really don't think much about themselves, and they wanna. How would they start? Like, what's the best way? How do you start with somebody to become that awareness, like you said?
Yeah. I'll give you the most simple way how I started about 25 years ago to build my confidence. Almost 30 years ago. Wow. Time flies.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I literally started by making my bed in the morning and celebrating it. I patted myself on the back. And then whatever else I could find that was a win in that day, I made it to work on time. I took a shower. Like where are we at in the scale? And how aware are we of where we are on that scale? I became very aware that I was on the bottom of the scale of self-esteem, the bottom. I had a lot of confidence because my career and other portions of my life, but it was false confidence. It was almost like, it was almost negative. It was cocky as in, instead of confidence, right? Because I was covering up for the lack of self-esteem.
Right.
So I started with, did I cook myself breakfast? Did I take a shower? Did I brush my teeth? Did I make the bed? And that began a new habit of, hey, good job. Like, I made the bed. Hey, good job. I got up today. Now, if you're not in that place, and you know it's a more elevated place, then it's like, I was adventurous today and I spoke up at work.
Well, and I just want to jump in. The reason for this is because typically the habit is to do the opposite. Normally we're beating ourselves up all day. When we talk to ourselves in our head, it's usually about, how bad we did and why didn't we do better? And we degrade ourselves. Like if we ever put the voice in our head on a loudspeaker, people would think we were nuts, right? So that voice in our head can either be our biggest challenge and the one that knocks us down, or our biggest cheerleader. So this process that Scott's talking about is a way to start shifting that muscle, to start celebrating yourself and actually getting yourself to acknowledge the great things that you do all day. And then you take it to the next level.
Exactly. Yeah, I see that. That is so good, because people don't realize it's like just the little baby steps.
Yeah.
And it's the simple things, it sounds like, like you said, making your bed. But, saying, hey, listen, I got up, I made my bed, like that's a good, like being happy, praising yourself for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, two things. We celebrate our failures, and we celebrate them in a big way, right? Like Nancy said, we beat ourselves up. We talk about our failures. We tell people how bad we are. We tell ourselves how bad we are. So if we're going to celebrate that, we need to find the balance to celebrate the 1 degree shifts of wins. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by 1 degree shifts is that's all it takes to change your life. To change the trajectory of who you want to become, not who you were, not who you are, who do you want to become? Mm-hmm. And with tiny little 1 degree shifts, it will take you in such different directions in your life. Mm-hmm.
Well, and it breaks it down for the subconscious, because if we look at, God, I want to be this confident person and have self-esteem and self-worth, and I don't have any of that, and we see other people that we envy or admire that have that, if we don't look at the fact that it'll take a little time and it'll take some steps to get there, we'll just feel overwhelmed, and that we'll feel like we can never get there. So when we break it down, it allows us to feel like it's achievable rather than this thing that we could never, ever be.
Absolutely. That's so good. That's really good. I mean, because I see so many people struggling with that. And even like with my thing is I help moms who are raising kids who are having their own anxiety and frustration, raising challenging kids diagnosed with ADHD or anxiety or no diagnosis, just very challenging kids. And I see a lot of that. I think there's a lot of things that I always see is that it comes from a lot of the way they parent is coming from your own, like your own past. Looking at how you were parented, like you were saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how you were parented and the traumas that you were going, because I guess that's what sets us for our beliefs. Like in my idea, I had a very, that's part of my past, but without, I actually felt not enough. Like I got that from my mom a lot. She just always made me feel like somebody was better than me. I was not good. If something happened, or I had an argument with a friend, I was the wrong. Not analyzing, see what happened or who was that for. I was wrong. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. So I led that, and I started seeing like I would kind of get mad, like it was coming through in my parenting. But I didn't want it to be because I'm like, wait a minute, this is not how I want to parent. But it's what I like saw, what I believed. Like I guess you see a lot of that, right? Something like that.
We do. And you know, the main focus in where we help clients is that root belief.
Right.
Because when we have a belief, that's where we make choices from. And so if, like for me, I believed the same thing. I wasn't enough and I wasn't lovable. That's the belief that I held. So all of the choices that I made came from a place of I'm not enough. I don't deserve love. So changing that belief, right? Really finding where it began, the root cause of it, and giving that belief a new meaning, because we can't just pluck it out. The belief has to be given a new meaning. So for me, I changed unlovable to pure love. And I didn't change it overnight, but it became my new habit. Instead of going to the place of I'm unlovable and making choices from that belief, seeing that, well, you know what? There are people out there that have loved me. There are people that love me. So the belief that I'm unlovable isn't really true. And if I could begin to see that, little pieces of that evidence, I could begin to create a new meaning around the belief. And it, again, changes everything about the way that we live our life. It changes the way that we eat food. It changes the way that we have one-night stands. It changes the way that we speak to our spouse, our children, or our coworkers. All of it comes from that belief.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. That is like so good. Like what kind of tools or like a strategy would you kind of like give anybody an idea of where they can start? Like the biggest, is that just like to help them like making their bed, but like to help them get there, to realize how they, where that root cause is coming from, basically.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I'm saying? Like what, like when you work with somebody and to discover why they're feeling that way, like that root cause and that limiting belief, like what would be a way that you would help like to start like with them?
Yeah, the very first thing that we always work with people on is the awareness, right? Because most of us are living on autopilot. So we go through our day, we go through our work day, we, parent our kids, everything on autopilot. It's the same thing, same reactions, same thoughts. So it's really becoming aware of those patterns first and foremost, and really becoming aware of the voice in your head, because the voice in your head is directly representative of your beliefs. So if you have a belief that you're not enough, you're going to be saying things that represent that. So it's noticing, where do I say those things? What do I say them about? How often do I say them? And in the beginning, it's very shocking because
which is so hard, because people probably just are hearing it and not really hearing it. It's there. It's almost like they say, go away.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish. Sorry.
So we don't want the thoughts to just go away, right? We want to investigate them. We want to know, why are they around and why are they there so often? So like you did, you started to figure out, this sounds familiar, right? It sounds like my mother. It sounds like my father. It sounds like someone that instilled this belief inside me. So then we start looking at that with the awareness and really seeing where it's infiltrating in our life. And from there is where we can start making the 1 degree shifts that Scott's talking about, of noticing, is it really true, right? That's once we identify the thoughts we're having, we have to ask them, are they really true? And when we start combating our own thought process, our own thought habits with something like that, it's different than anything that's ever happened, because normally it's autopilot. So when we start asking it a question, it like puts the brakes on and it wakes you up, and it allows you to answer truthfully of, well, no, I'm not enough all of the time. Maybe there's times that you truly feel like you weren't enough, but there's times that you really couldn't see that you were enough. And it's starting to notice those and point those out for yourself, so you can start to see that there's more of that out there. And when we actually shine light on that, you'll get more evidence of that throughout the day, of times that you will want to celebrate yourself, that you were enough. But it's this constant process, because we have to override the autopilot. We have to override that sleepwalking.
Well, we have to override the habit.
Mm-hmm.
The thought habit is what creates all of this turmoil.
Right.
Have you ever, or anybody in the audience, have you ever said inside your head, like, oh, you're so stupid? Anybody ever said that, right? Now, let me ask you another question. How many of you are there? One.
Right.
So identifying that story, oh, you're so stupid.
Well, I'm good for that story.
That's
my famous one.
Right?
Yeah.
The I'm so stupid is the subconscious skipping the reality to tell you what you believe.
Yeah, makes sense.
When we distinguish, when we have awareness that the person that heard, you're so stupid, the person that heard it, you heard it in here, right? There's a piece of you that felt it as you heard it. The part of you that felt it is you. That's the real you. That's the heart space. That's the true soul of who you are.
So much sense, yeah.
When we can begin to distinguish the difference and have awareness that thought habit is a habit.
Mm-hmm.
And just like smoking, just like eating, just like drinking, just like all the other habits that we have in life, we can change it.
Mm-hmm. If we're aware of it.
If we're aware of it.
If we're aware of it, like anything else.
That's why,
like an alcoholic can't change it if they're not aware they have a problem. Or a smoker says, no, I don't have a problem. They can't change it. It's the same if we're not aware of that habit that we're doing, and we can't change it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And all it is another habit. So as we begin to recognize that, as we begin to learn the human behavior behind the way that it works, we can begin to really live from our heart space and not that limiting belief or that story that we tell ourselves from old evidence, right? Because that's how we live.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this relationship's going to fail just like the rest.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to cheat on me just like everybody else did. They're going to leave just like everybody else did. We then make choices from that place because we believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Change that thought habit change your life.
Mhm. Yeah.
It all starts with that thought. It
Yeah.
all starts with what's in here. And that's change that and you change everything. I
Yeah.
love that.
Really noticing and acknowledging that it is that habit, because if we don't, then we get frustrated with the fact that we keep going there, and that's where we stop. When we acknowledge that it's a habit, well, obviously we're going to keep going back to it, and then we can be a little bit kinder to ourselves when we go there, to be like, well, of course I've been saying this to myself for however old you are, 40 years,
Right.
50 years. So of course I'm going to say it again. I'm not going to just notice it and it's going to go away.
Right.
I have to keep the repetition up of building a new muscle to move in the other direction.
And that's where coaches come in,
Yeah.
right?
To keep
Because
that accountability.
we help you
Right.
actually build the muscle with accountability to have that lifestyle change, because it is a lifestyle change. It is a practice.
Mhm.
Even though I've been practicing this for 30 years plus, I still get to practice every day.
Yeah.
Because
We always have to practice because we can fall back at any time, like that. But we're more aware of that, even when we fall back, because we're aware, we catch ourselves, right?
well, and not even falling back,
Right.
life just continues to happen.
Right.
So you get presented opportunities to practice being patient. You get opportunities to practice being kind. You get opportunities to practice living from your heart space instead of your story. That never stops, but we get better and better at it by practicing.
Mhm.
Absolutely. That's so good. I love that. I love that. Awesome. Okay. Awesome. So what would you guys want to say to the audience right now, as far as, if they want to even connect with you, how would they do that?
Yeah.
What's the best ways?
To connect with us, the best way is honestly to go on Google and just type in Scott and Nancy, and all of our stuff will come up.
Yes, that's true.
Website,
Yes.
our Facebook. There's not many Scott and Nancy's out there, so it's very beneficial in our favor. And you'll find our website. You can contact us either through our website or Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah.
We're on
You're on
all
everything. You're pretty much on everything.
And
Yeah.
everything is Scott and Nancy.
Yeah, that's our brand.
we're-
So
Yeah.
but I guess what I would leave the audience with is, just realizing and really owning that how you feel right now is not just the way you are, right? A lot of us, that's that ongoing thing that we say to ourselves, like, this is just the way that I am, and whatever, it's just how I'm going to be.
Or how life is.
And yeah, this is just how life is.
That's
But
what
that's
everybody
not
says.
true if you don't want it to be. And that's where it comes in. Do you want it to be this way or don't you? Because you have the choice. So which way do you want to go? And then make that commitment to yourself. And once you do, the universe is going to start dropping little things in your path to take advantage of, to start learning a different direction.
Yeah.
But just cancel out that thought that comes in.
Well, and I would leave everybody with this. We talk about this in a way that seems like, for us, it's simple.
Right.
And it did not happen overnight. It did not happen alone.
Yeah.
I have had coaches. I still have coaches. Because again, we continue to grow. And so getting out of our own way, getting to the depth of finding that root cause of that belief is a very challenging, difficult thing on our own. Because we're going to go to a level that's uncomfortable and we're going to give up.
Mhm.
And that's just human behavior. So find somebody. If it's not us, find somebody that you can talk to, that can share advice, that perspective from, because that's how we grow. Really.
Yeah.
Definitely.
great
That's
point.
awesome advice. That's great advice, both of you, because people just need that. It is. It's hard to go. It's hard to do it alone, because you're doing it. You need that, like you said, that accountability. Somebody to be there that's in your corner. That's not, just somebody that's there, because they'll walk you, like almost like hold your hand in a sense. because I give you that accountability, because by yourself, like you said, you get to that, when you get to all these hard times, you're gonna be like, I can't do this anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
So good. Thank you guys. This has been awesome. I know the
Thank
audience got so much from this, and thank you so much for being guest on it. I love it.
Our pleasure.
Thank
you for having
Andrea.
us.
Yeah,
No
thank you so
problem.
much for having us.